Well, hopefully I'm going to have a bit of fun this afternoon, seeing if I can pick up some mackerel, which is something I absolutely love to do from the shore each year. Come down to wherever, to a mark somewhere, and lure fish for a few mackerel. They offer some fantastic sport, and as far as me and my wife Linda are concerned, it's one of our favourite fish to eat, so it's always good to see if I can harvest a few. Now on this occasion I'm going to be jigging for them, or using a method called sink and draw. Now when I say that, I don't mean I'm going to be feathering for them. I'm not using a string of feathers. I'm going to be using a single lure, single jig or spinner, whatever you want to call it, and jig for them. Now this is mainly for beginners to shore fishing for mackerel. Now jigging for them or sink and draw can be a very good way to target mackerel. Normally, and I've done a few videos in the past, I've done where I'm spinning for them, where you cast the spinner out, the jig out, and then you wind it in. You draw it through the water column, and it's usually it's got a bit of action to it. And then, as I've always recommended, when you can, you pause for a little bit to allow it to flutter down, as often mackerel will take when a spinner is falling. But sometimes I've been spinning and not really doing that well, and I've reverted to jigging the jig, sink and draw, and then suddenly the results become better. So the method is you cast it out just the same, and instead of drawing it through the water column with the occasional pause, you cast it out, take up the slack, and then you're raising your rod tip up to draw the lure up through the water column, and then you lower it down to give it slack. And then while you're lowering it down, you take up the slack, sink and draw. And what happens when you lower it down, it won't go straight back down like that. The jig will flutter down. Now the reason this can be effective is because mackerel very often will take a lure, whether it be feathers or a spinner, on the drop when you're pausing, because they see it as, well, it's a few reasons. It creates a lot of action in the water, a lot of flash as the lure's sinking down, creates bubbles, which is an attraction, disturbance in the water, but it gives the impression of an injured fish or sand eel. So if you could imagine, you get a shoulder mackerel hunting, they hit a shoulder sand eels. Don't grab all of them. They leave some injured, and those injured ones will just sort of flutter down in the water column. They see it as easy prey. They come in, pick it up, pick up those injured and falling fish. So that is why often, even when you're doing conventional spinning, you're drawing it through, you do get takes, and then you pause, suddenly, bang, you get a mackerel take it. But unlike spinning, when you're doing the jigging all the time, the sink and draw, you are putting that action into effect the whole of the fishing time. You cast it out, you raise the rod tip up, you lower it down, it flutters down, you raise it up, you lower it down, it flutters down, you raise it up, you lower it down. So all the time you're fishing, bringing the lure back to the shore, except maybe when you're getting close and it's getting too shallow to do that, you're creating that disturbance, creating those bubbles, creating that flash, and giving the impression of it's easy prey, falling down, easy prey for the mackerel. So that's what we're doing for the whole of this session. So I'm going to be using one metal today, one jig, one spinner, and it's this one, 28 gram Dennet Super Sprat, which comes with a treble. But if I can, I like to change trebles and pop singles on. So I've changed the treble for a 1/0 single, inline single. People will ask me what brand, I know they will. This particular one, I use several, but this particular one I believe is a Cox & Rule inline single. 28 gram Dennet Super Sprat. And then rod, 8 foot, 15 to 40 grams, People do ask me about rods. I've done a tackle. I've done a video where I've gone through all the tackle that I use. That changes, of course, but all the tackle that I use. And in that video, I'll put it in the description. I talk about the lure rod that I use from the shore and also from the kayak for casting. 8 foot, 15 to 40 gram, 4,000 size lure reel, loaded with 15-pound braid in this instance, and then joined to the end of the braid by an Albright special knot is about 2.5 feet of 15-pound fluorocarbon to act as a rubbing leader, particularly when you're fishing in rough ground, over rough ground, which is what I will be today. Down to the end of that, of the rubbing leader, is a breakaway mini link to clip the jig on. All right, so really warm today. Phew. I'm really sweating just getting here today. As many people you know how hot it's been lately. It's bright, but it is set to cloud over, which would be good. I'm going to start fishing at low water, so catch the early flood tide. We'll see how it goes. Fish 2 or 3 hours of the flood tide before I've got to go. Have some fun, and just, if you know what, if I catch one, I'll be pleased, but you never know. We'll see. There either mackerel will be here, moving through, or they won't. And I'll talk a little bit more about the method when I'm actually fishing. I don't know if the camera will pick it up here, and I haven't got an underwater camera with me, but I'm going to try and show you from up here what the action of the lure looks on the sink and draw, the jigging method. So we'll lower it down, we'll draw it up and let it flutter down. Draw it up, let it flutter down. Draw it up, flutter down. Draw it up, flutter down. I'll try and do it on the spot there. I don't know if you can see how when the lure is falling down, it turns sideways on. So it doesn't just go straight back down. And that is basically giving the impression of a injured sand eel or small fish falling through the water column. Okay, the tide will just start to come in a moment, and so I'm not really expecting anything until the tide is moving in. So the idea is cast this jig out literally as far as I can, then take up the slack as quick as I can. I've got a bit of a side wind, so puts a bit of bow in the line, but as soon as I feel the tension of the lure, which I can do now, it's then just a matter of raise it up, lower it down, raise it up, lower it down, and as I'm lowering it down, take up the slack. Now at the moment, until there's more water, it's quite shallow when I get close to shore, so I'm having to just reel it in. In other words, I can't let it drop, otherwise I'm just going to get snagged. But when the tide's flooded in a bit and I've got a bit more depth closer in here, then I'll be able to do that sink and draw, that jigging motion for longer. But at the moment, I can only do it for a short piece of time, short length of time from the maximum casting distance until I get closer in, because of being shallow and very, very rough ground. I'll try and show you this sideways on. Out she goes, hits the water, take up the slack as quick as possible till I can feel the tension, and then raise the rod tip up, lower it down, raise it up, lower it down, and usually the takes will be on that point when you're lowering it down like that. I'll try show you this from a different angle. I mean, it doesn't matter what method you use, whether you float fish, use feathers, conventional spinning, or sink and draw. You ain't going to catch anything unless unless the fish are either here or they move through this particular area. The sea is a big, it's a big sea, and as I've mentioned before, when I'm out on the kayak, one of the things is finding the fish, find the feeding fish, and then, to be honest, it's pretty simple. So when you're fishing an area like this, the fish, of course, they could be anywhere. The mackerel, they could be way out, they could be come close in. If there's sand eels around, which I know there is, obviously there's a reason for them to come in. If there's sand eels close in, but the way I look at it is, this is a game for you beginners. You just got to keep trying, keep that lure working in the water as much as possible for your session. So work at it and just hope that a shoal of fish come by. Your jig, you cast that jig out just at a time when there's a shoal of mackerel moving by or coming in. Right, I'm in. I'm pleased to say. Well, 20 minutes into the flood, and again took on the drop. I had a hit, thought it was on, it came off, but it was obviously a shoal, and then lost that one, and then another one took it. I turned the cameras off because I'm trying to save my battery, but now I know there is going to be mackerel around. I will try and leave the camera on to try and get the take. Right, got to get it. Keep attention on it. That's quite. Oh no! Oh God, that's a nice mackerel. Fantastic. That's that point there when you trying to draw them on out the water onto the rock is a crucial time. You can often lose them that way. All right, I'm just going to dispatch this. So for those of you that don't want to see this, I would fast forward now. But this is for eating, so it's got to be dealt with. Done. Beautiful mackerel. Good. Okay. Keep it cool. So if any of you are thinking, well, you know, you've got spinning, which I've done videos about, spinning for mackerel, and now we're doing one which I haven't covered until now, sink and draw, or jig from the shore. Done jigging from the kayak from the shore, are thinking, well, okay, well, what do I use? What do I do? This is beginners. Well, what I would advise you do is mix it up. If you've got a session, start by doing just conventional spinning, drawing it through the water column, and see if that works, and then do a bit of sink and draw jigging if you can, if you've got the depth, because obviously remember, if you're letting that lure drop down, if you need a bit of depth of water, you've got too shallow water, you're going to have to do it too quickly, otherwise you risk being snagged. So I would advise mix it up, see what method works best on the day, and if the mackerel around, of course, Both methods will work, but it's just a bit of fun, isn't it? To try different methods. Right, let's get out there. Out as far as I can. Take up the slack. Feel the weight of the lure. Draw the rod up, lower it down. Draw the rod up, lower it down. And when I lower it down, take up the slack. And when it's lowering down, that lure is creating a lot of flutter in the water. Well, just because I caught one doesn't mean I'm going to catch any more, because they could have moved. A little shoal came by and they might have moved away now. So again, it's just a matter of just keep that lure working in the water. Keep working at it. Oh, got a hit then. Just had a knock. So just keep going. I mean, it might not have been mackerel. It could be a pollock, of course, small little pollock. But yeah, just had a touch then. Yeah, I'm a bit. This is where I've got to be a bit careful. Close to shore, as I mentioned. So I'm just speeding up the sink and draw to try and stay above the rough ground, and then we'll just draw it in. And of course, I still could, if mackerel have followed it in, following it in, could still get a take right at my feet here. Well, I lost, just had a take then. I think it was a pollock actually. It was just as I'd stopped jigging and was reeling it in over the shallow rough ground, and had the take, but it didn't feel like a mackerel. It felt like a pollock. Right, I've got 20 minutes to catch another one. If I don't catch one, that's going to be it. If I do catch one, that'll be it. But it's particularly dead at the moment, no sign of fish at all. But you never know. Well, at last, I've got another one. At least I think it's a mackerel. Interesting. Caught that mackerel very early on in the flood tide, and I thought, oh great, I'm in for a good session. And then completely dead. They were gone. And now back again, just when I've got to go. Oh no, there's a bit of seal around, and I thought the way that mackerel was acting, that the seal was chasing it. Oh, brilliant. Well, I know I said 20 minutes, that's it. Well, that was 10 minutes. That went 10 minutes ago, but now you know what it's like. I cannot resist it. Caught that one, so you never know. There might be a few around. So we'll give it another 10 minutes just to see. There we go, there we go. Amazing how it goes, isn't it, fishing? You think, God, Well, you know what it's like when you come and catch nothing. Yeah, it just goes completely dead, and then suddenly there's a few start moving through again. But I had started seeing quite a few. Oh, actually, this is a pollock. This is a little pollock. Yeah, I started seeing some good shoals of sand eels close in. I'll put that one back. Right, that's it. Definitely got to go now and get these cleaned up. So I'm really pleased. Well, pleased to get one, and of course, when it looked like I was literally going to just catch the one, I'm very grateful to get this second one. And there you go. Look, they're, as usual, that's what they're feeding on. Sand eels. So for those of you, particularly beginners, who want to or do a little bit of spinning for mackerel from the shore, occasionally try jigging for them, the sink and draw. They say it'll often work, and what I normally do is mix it up, both. I mean, for the purpose of this video, I stuck with the jigging, the sink and draw, but often I will mix it up, bit of spinning and a bit of jigging, and often many times both will work, but sometimes one method will work better than others. So once again, I hope you found that useful, and many thanks for watching.